So thank you, Father Cyril Hurtobagi, Arch-Abbot of Pannonhalma and President of the Conference of Male Religious of Hungary, and Father Urs Jaakko Fehérvári, the Rector of the Sapientia College of Theology of Religious Orders, for your kind invitation to address this conference dedicated to the theme of development of community and organization in the churches. I greet all of the participants, and based on the invitation I received, I would like to dedicate my reflections to Preadicate Evangelium, synodality, service, and mission. On Saturday, March 19, 2022, the Solemnity of St. Joseph, Pope Francis promulgated the Apostolic Constitution Preadicate Evangelium on the Roman Curia and its service to the Church in the world. It entered into force on June 5, 2022, the Solemnity of Pentecost, repealing the Apostolic Constitution Pastor Bonus, promulgated in 1988 by St. John Paul II. We can say that the key word of this new Apostolic Constitution, which has 250 articles, respecting 193 of the Constitution Pastor Bonus, the key word is synodality, which must be expressed in three main directions. The Curia is at the service of the Pope, but also of the Universal Church. The text therefore advocates a healthy decentralization and the implementation of the principle of subsidiarity. The heads of the organisms of the Roman Curia, all placed on the same level, exercise their mandate as vicars of the Pope. These functions can be entrusted to clerics or lay people, men or women, as baptized, according to the list of 12 criteria indicated for the mission of the Roman Curia: service of the mission of the Pope, co-responsibility in communion, service of the mission, support for the particular churches, the vicarious nature of the Roman Curia, spirituality in view of the universal call to holiness of all the baptized, personal integrity and professionalism, cooperation between the dicasteries, and therefore meetings between them and within the same dicasteries as an expression of Catholicity, reduction of the number of dicasteries, and the obligation of charity, a witness to, in the words of St. Paul VI, spark of divine charity. So the dynamics of the reform, regrouping the congregations and the pontifical councils in 16 dicasteries, is inspired by the requirements of zeal for evangelization, as the title of the document and the first dicastery indicate, of fidelity to doctrine of the faith, the second dicastery in the list, and the implementation of concrete charity, the third dicastery named. So the main offices, according to the new Apostolic Constitution, are now the Secretariat of State, followed by 16 dicasteries in the following order: for evangelization. And it should be noted that the dicastery for evangelization, the first to be named, is under the direct authority of Pope Francis, assisted by two prefects or pro-prefects for its two sections: the section for the fundamental questions of evangelization, and the section for the first evangelization and the new particular churches. For the doctrine of the faith, doctrinal section and disciplinary section, and the Commission for the Protection of Minors is integrated into the doctrine of the faith. For the service of charity, the ancient apostolic eleemosinaria. for the Eastern churches, for divine worship and the discipline of the sacraments, for the causes of saints, for bishops, for the clergy, for institutes of consecrated life and societies of apostolic life, for the laity, the family and life, for the promotion of Christian unity, for interreligious dialogue, for culture and education, brings together two previously separate departments, therefore two sections, for the promotion of integral human development, for legislative texts, for communication. And the organs of justice are three: the Apostolic Penitentiary, the Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura, and the Tribunal of the Roman Rota. There were also a series of economic bodies: the Prefecture for the Economy, the Secretariat for the Economy, the Administration of the Patrimony of the Apostolic See, APSA, the Office of the Auditor General, the Reserved Business Commission, and the Investment Committee. There were also three other offices: the Prefecture of the Pontifical Household, the Office of Liturgical Celebrations of the Sovereign Pontiff, and the Camerlenio of Holy Roman Church. And even lawyers have 3 articles in the new constitution, and the institutions linked to the Holy See are explained in 9 articles, and they include archives, library, the Fabbrica di San Pietro, pontifical academies, the financial authority, etc. So that's an overview of the scheme of the new apostolic constitution. But what is the reason for this renewal? In his apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis wrote, and I quote, "The papacy and the central structures of the universal church also need to hear the call to pastoral conversion. The Second Vatican Council stated that, like the ancient patriarchal churches, episcopal conferences are in a position to contribute to many and fruitful ways to the concrete realization of the collegial spirit. Yet this desire has not been fully realized, since a juridical status of episcopal conferences, which would see them as subjects of specific attributions, including genuine doctrinal authority, has not yet been sufficiently elaborated. Excessive centralization, rather than proving helpful, complicates the Church's life and her missionary outreach." End of quotation. So the new apostolic constitution, Preadicate Evangelium, is the result of this insight. It's the result of an elaboration which has seen the accomplishment of several stages in accordance with the principle to which a synodal church is a church of listening, with the awareness that listening is more than hearing. It is a reciprocal listening in which everyone has something to learn. The faithful people of God, the Episcopal College, the Bishop of Rome, each listening to the others, and all listening to the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, to know what he is saying to the churches. The title of the text, Preadicate Evangelium, taken from the expression of Mark chapter 16, verse 15, the mandate entrusted by the risen one to his disciples, reveals the perspective in which the reorganization of the Roman Curia was carried out, aimed at promoting its service in favor of evangelization and bringing about its missionary conversion. At number 3 of the preamble, it is clearly indicated that the reform of the Roman Curia must be understood in the context of the missionary nature of the Church. And after alluding to the various reforms that have taken place from the 16th century to the present day, it concludes by affirming that, and once more I quote, "This new apostolic constitution seeks to attune its present-day activity more effectively to the path of evangelization that the Church, especially in our times, has taken." Given, therefore, that the missionary spirit is the backbone that structures the text of this new apostolic constitution, this explains the creation of the dicastery for evangelization and the order of position assigned to it. It's important to note at this point that all the dicasteries enjoy equal legal dignity and that all exercise jurisdictional power. Therefore, the order of place in the list has no legal value in itself, but at least for the first three, is significant. Therefore, the choice to assign the order of precedence to the dicastery for evangelization especially reflects the perspective of missionary spirit, in which the general vision of the curial reform was carried out. This priority and centrality of evangelization is also underlined by the deliberate choice that the Pope himself will preside over the dicastery for evangelization. There's no question of placing the activity of evangelization before faith in Christ himself. This choice is well understood in the light of a change which is taking place historically and which inevitably obliges the Church to face unprecedented challenges, directing herself towards new frontiers, both in the first mission ad gentes and in the new evangelization of peoples who have already received the proclamation of Christ. It's also significant that in the established order, the dicastery for the doctrine of faith, and the dicastery for the service of charity follow the dicastery for evangelization. In the light of this overall vision, in which the spirit of curial service has been rethought, the reason for wanting to raise the forma eleemosineria apostolica to the rank of dicastery for the service of charity is obvious. Thus, while awaiting the choice of the missionary spirit, the Roman Curia contributes to the work of evangelization of the Church in its own way. The Roman Curia is by nature a service organization. It is the institution which the Pope ordinarily uses in the exercise of his supreme pastoral mandate and his universal mission in the world. Because of this service to the Petrine ministry, the Roman Curia also places herself at the service of the bishops. She is, and I quote, at the service of the Pope, who, as the successor of Peter, is the perpetual and visible source and foundation of the unity both of the bishops and of the whole company of the faithful. By virtue of this bond, the work of the Roman Curia is also organically related to the College of Bishops and individual bishops, as well as to episcopal conferences and their regional and continental groupings, and the hierarchical structures of the Eastern churches. All these are of great benefit, pastoral benefit, as expressions of the affective and effective communion existing among the bishops. The Roman Curia is not set between the Pope and the bishops, but is at the service of both, according to the modalities proper to the nature of each. Number 8 of the preamble. Among the principles and criteria for the service of the Roman Curia in number 2 of the preamble, co-responsibility in communio is indicated. And this indicates that the service of the Roman Curia, always with full respect for collegiality, is also carried out in the spirit of a healthy decentralization. That is to say, knowing how to value local skills, to deal and solve problems that do not concern the unity of doctrine, discipline, and communion of the Church, in order to guarantee a more rapid effectiveness of the pastoral action of the government of pastors, facilitated by their proximity to people and cases and individuals on site who require it. This criterion responds to the principle of subsidiarity, which analogously can be applied in the life of the Church, which is both mysterium and societas. An innovative aspect of the Apostolic Constitution is that of the valorization of conferences of bishops, which, on the basis of the decree Christus Dominus, enter into the order of the Latin Church as a concrete form of application and development of the collegial spirit, to help bishops to deal with pastoral tasks and to resolve ecclesial commitments and issues of common interest, and not to replace their specific munus pastorale. Therefore, the episcopal conferences are not seen as intermediate hierarchical structures, but as organs of true subsidiarity, which interfere neither with the Petrine office nor with the government of particular churches. The preamble, affirming that conferences of bishops are presently one of the most significant means for expressing and preserving ecclesial communion in different places, together with the Roman Pontiff as guarantor of unity of faith and of communion, confirms that they express and promote the exercise of co-responsibility in communion for the pastoral usefulness and the common good of the particular churches through the joint exercise of certain functions which are proper to them. The intention of the new Apostolic Constitution is, therefore, to strengthen the episcopal conferences, their regional and continental expressions, as well as correspondingly and adequately the Eastern hierarchical structures, in their potential for implementing the communion of bishops among themselves and with the Roman Pontiff, since each of the aforementioned organs, each according to its own nature, proves to be a valid instrument that contributes in a multiple and fruitful way to the implementation of the affectus collegialis, the collegial affect between the members of the same episcopate, and provides for the common good of the particular churches through concerted and united work of their respective pastors, as an expression of close cooperation and an indication of the need for harmony of forces as the fruit of the exchange of prudence and experience for the good of the whole church. In his address to the Roman Curia on December 22nd, 2016, Pope Francis reiterated, and I quote, "It should be noted that the reform will be effective only if it is carried out by men and women who are renewed and not simply new. We cannot be content simply with changing personnel. We need to encourage spiritual, human and professional renewal among the members of the Curia. The reform of the Curia is in no way implemented with a change of persons, something that is happening and will continue to happen, but with the conversion in persons. Continuing formation is not enough. What we also need, and above all, is continuing conversion and purification. Without a change of mentality, efforts at practical improvement will be in vain. Without a change in mentality, the functional effort would be in vain. As for the whole Church, in the Curia, also the semper reformanda, always reformed, must be transformed into a permanent personal and structural conversion. Reform is therefore above all a process of growth, and above all of conversion, a sign of the vivacity of the Church on the move, of the living Church. And for this reason, because she is alive, semper reformanda, and precisely reformanda because she is alive. Within this horizon are the precise provisions of the Apostolic Constitution concerning the spirituality, personal integrity, and professionalism of those who work in the Roman Curia. And this is best summarized in the preamble at number 11, and I quote, "The reform of the Roman Curia will be authentic and effective if it is the fruit of an interior reform whereby we appropriate the paradigm of spirituality of the Council as expressed in the ancient story of the Good Samaritan. The person who goes out of his way to be a neighbor to someone left half dead on the roadside, a foreigner whom he does not even know. This spirituality has its deepest source in the love of God, who loved us first while we were still poor sinners. It reminds us that our duty is, in imitation of Christ, to serve our brothers and sisters, especially those in greatest need, and that Christ's face is seen in the face of every man and woman, particularly those who suffer in any way." In the words of the Jesuit poet Gerard Manley Hopkins, Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in eyes and lovely in limbs not his, to the Father's glory in the features of men's faces. How can we bear witness to the beauty of the Christian faith, to the new generations that do not speak or understand the old language? How can we ensure that the yeast of the gospel returns to leaven the dough both of societies that were once Christian and of those that do not yet know Jesus Christ? Preadicate Evangelium, to preach the gospel. Service and mission in a spirit of synodality, mission and service in a spirit of synodality. It is for this reason that we have chosen to follow Jesus Christ. It is for this reason that his church exists. And this, ultimately, is the raison d'être of all her institutions. Jesus Christ, the same, yesterday, today, and forever. Thank you for your kind attention. May God bless your reflections today and bless the precious mission to which each of you has dedicated your lives. Thank you.